Hey up. Right, we got a fun one today. Very, very relevant for a couple of reasons. Jack has asked, I've qualified as a Qigong teacher a few times, and as my energy keeps rising, I'm looking to get fitter. I like the idea of martial arts to get fit, in particular, psychological and spiritual aspects that come with these. It would be interesting to hear you talk about this and some of the different martial arts and their benefits in terms of fitness. Of course, you could even give yourself a plug that you can teach us how. Cheers, Dave. Jack. Now, why is this particularly relevant? Two reasons. One, I was actually just off a call from Jack. He's just come back to me. And I posted on Facebook just yesterday how a BJJ player I work with has just had his wrist injured by wrist locks. And that falls into what my reply to Jack. Now, just so you know, these all come about after I write the newsletter. So questions come in from clients, from subscribers, whether you're on the newsletter, on this video channel, or through the online training that I offer. Sometimes it's in conversation. So Jack's question came in through the email. If you have a question, send it in. There's a comment section underneath the videos, as you well know, or get on to davehedges.net, my website, and just find me an email. It's all good. I write the newsletter, and then eventually I get around to doing this. I only just restarted doing videos, so it'll be a little while before we catch up with the newsletter. So Jack mentions Qigong, which I love Qigong. I first came across Qigong when I was, I reckon, about 19 years old. So let's put that in context. That would be 1996, thereabouts, give or take a year. 1996, I reckon I first came across Qigong proper. I think I'd read something about it in a book or two. And then a buddy of mine heard about a seminar that was coming up, and that was a student of a guy called Bruce Kumar Francis. And I gotta say, good information. I looked into Francis since. Not a fan. Personal reasons. Don't take my word for that. You make up your own mind. Since then, I've delved into other bits and pieces, read several books, but really, when I was in Australia in the early 2000s, I met a guy called Mark Rasmus. He was offering Wing Chun training, but he also talked a lot about Qigong. Then he introduced it to us. We all loved it, so we trained with him 4 days a week. We did 8 hours a week with him, 4 2-hour sessions. So we alternated. Physical martial session on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays would be more Qigong, what he called structural work, which really did amplify the martial work. But I'm putting together, I've got an online course available on davehedges.net. This is the plug that Jack invited me to give. So the online course that's currently available is standing Qigong, basically just standing still. That's the foundational work. That's the basic work. Jack mentions energy keeps rising, and he's interested in psychological and spiritual aspect. What standing does, what I personally think standing Qigong does, is if you follow me on Instagram, Facebook for any length of time, you'll be familiar with some of the work I do. Is it allows you, if we imagine, and this is imagine, this isn't absolutely correct, but when you're stood upright, gravity goes down, you are going to conduct gravity down through you into the ground. I know, don't get on to me and say, Dave, that's not how it works, but it's a visualization. It's a way. It's a story. Doesn't mean it's a true story. It's just a story. But as you conduct gravity down through your body, as if it was an electrical force or something like that, electricity. If you're in any way structurally minded, if you're an engineering or building, if you've ever played Jenga, you'll know that structure, if it's stacked up really nicely, is incredibly strong. But if it's somewhat offline a little bit, then it starts to crumble, it starts to fall, cracks start to appear. And we can sort of think of that as muscles, joints can be chronically loaded, and then that can be, doesn't mean it will be, but that can be where we start to feel pain and tension. Think of the incredibly common tight IT band, right? Why are their IT bands tight? It seems to be because we're always trying to pull our hips into some sort of external rotation, because they're maybe always falling into internal rotation. These are broad strokes, guys. These are very generic broad strokes. I'm not talking specifically about anybody in particular. But what we do find is a lot of people's feet are flat for some reason. When the foot, the arch, sits flat, that will usually internally rotate the tibia, which will internally rotate the femur, which then will tilt the hip forward. How do we get out of that? Is we crank the hips out and we get chronically tight piriformis, IT band, this, that, the bloody other. What Qigong does is it often allows you time, which is something we're all incredibly short of these days. Time to sit with yourself, or rather stand with yourself, and feel through, become aware of where you hold habitual tension. I was running on which Force of Nature course was it? One of the Force of Nature, one of the Force of Nature courses. Last year, I was running, and one of the boys, he has a history of injuries, and we'd stood doing the Qigong, and this is, a few weeks in, so we'd done a few sessions, and I'd been doing a bit outside of the course. And standing, you could see occasionally he'd get a bit uncomfortable, and then he'd settle down and all that. But he had a major back injury. And he stood there one day, and all of a sudden, he's standing. We're scanning the body, we're chilling out, we're relaxing into it. There's a lot of mental focus work, but we'll get to that. But his physical body was relaxing. He was sinking into his structure. Because he's settling, the muscle tension's relaxing, the habitual tension's relaxing. Your structure shifts a little bit to be more balanced, to conduct that force down. If you've say your right hip gets real tight, as that habitual tension starts to relax, you will shift towards your left a little bit, which might bring you more central. And then you might find other muscles on and that right leg relax. We don't know. But this lad, he just, all of a sudden, he sort of moved, and he went off camera for a moment because we were doing this online, and he comes back, and we carried on the session. And at the end of it, I was like, "You all right?" And he went, "Yeah." the site where he gets the back pain got real sort of grungy, real sort of worked up. And he sort of moved around a little bit and he did a little twist and he got a massive pop, a big bang. And it's like his whole system just went. Whew. That's when he came back on camera and he jumped back in the remainder of the session. And he said the pop gave him a bit of a fright, but he felt about 3 inches taller and a hell of a lot lighter immediately afterwards. And this is, causation, correlation. Did the Qigong allow his nervous system to let go, his sympathetic arousal to come down enough? Did he become so aware of muscular tension and that whatever structural alignment he was holding, that whatever tension was in around that injury, that protective tension, because your body does tense up and tighten up to protect an injury site. Did he let that go, let that dissolve, and then something clicked and popped and whatever? Did the Qigong cause that, or did the Qigong just allow his body figure that out? I'm going to go with the latter. His body figured it out, but it was having that few moments of time, that awareness, that mental awareness, that body scan that we do, the allowing tension to dissipate, the emphasis on the breathing that helps calm the nervous system. So you do get a little bit of separation where you're almost observing yourself, which is nice. You're observing the body somewhat dispassionately. It's almost as if you're looking at somebody else and your body lets go, it relaxes, and good stuff happens. So yeah, you want to get a start on that, use the online courses link on davehedges.net. I'm building the movement version, which will be a follow-on. You have to do the standing before you can do the movement one, in my opinion. So Qigong, great drill. Now, Qigong does incorporate breath work, breathing. I've talked about breathing and breath work for years now. Again, my introduction, I reckon I was a late teenager when my karate instructor, Jack Parker, had been to yoga. He'd been doing a bit of yoga for his own physical, for his own sake. And at the start of the class, he always liked to bring in new stuff he'd been learning. So he was always changing warm-ups and bringing us new exercises and stuff like that. It was great. But this one day, he had us all kneeling down, we'd bowed it, and he says, right, we're going to do a breathing exercise that he just picked up on yoga, and it was the 4-4-8 method. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8. So it's a 1-1-2 ratio. Jack introduced that to us, and we did it for a few weeks, and then he, as always, it kind of peters out, and we get back into other stuff, or some new idea comes in that he goes with us. But one lad in particular, one of the younger kids, if I was a late teenager, he was probably just in his very early teens, had very bad asthma, grown up with really bad asthma. And a few months after we've been doing this 4-4-8 breathing, I'm stood at the front, stood at the doorway, helping Jack sign people in and collecting the couple of quid it was for the class. And this kid's mum starts talking to Jack, and I sort of earwigging a little bit. But it's the way she was talking really caught my interest. She was really excited. She was telling Jack that I don't know what you're doing in this class, but it's absolutely brilliant. She'd been to the doctor with her kid for their regular, however often, checkup where they test the lung function. And the doctor nearly fell off his seat when they did the lung function test, and this kid registered a 30% increase in volume. Just think about that. This kid had increased his ability to exhale by 30%. That's life changing if you're heavily asthmatic. I don't know. I mean, geez, I haven't seen him in years. I don't know how he's doing now, but that stuck in my head. Probably why when breathing information became a bit more accessible, more people are talking about it. And currently now it's the darling of the neuroscience and the performance world. Everybody's talking about breathing now. Brilliant. Love it. As always, people are taking it and turning it into something it doesn't need to be. But breath work is phenomenally important and phenomenally useful. A 30% increase in lung function, it's unheard of. That's just from doing one yoga-based breathing drill. Nowadays, we've got access to, well, that's 448. There's box breathing where you breathe in, hold, out, hold, and usually on a 4 count. Yeah, so it's a 1, 1, 1, 1, but in, hold it, exhale, hold it. There's Buteyko style breathing, which is a short in, longer out, and then a pause. Yeah. Buteyko, we tend to focus just on the in, and we let the rest of it just happen, but it's small in, like deliberately short. Let the exhale just happen naturally, and let the pause happen naturally. And yeah, we do practice our pauses. There's many other breath practices. There's Wim Hof has his, which is controversial at best. And there's several others. There's ones I don't even know about yet. But Qigong incorporates breathing, and it has a real focus on getting the breath down into the diaphragm, which is really important. Every breath practice does this, slightly different ways. And we often use movement, so as you inhale, you expand out in some way. As you exhale, you contract back in again. So you get this bellows idea, timed with the breathing. And it's lovely. It really, I'm going to say it relaxes you. But because there's a high degree of mental focus, it's not a sleepy relaxed. You come out of it with a relaxed ready. Just a, let's go. And I love that. Love that. I'll often use it at the end of training, or I might use it a bit of time before training. And then other days, just stand up and do a bit because why not? So let's come around then to Jack's other question. He mentions there mind, body, spirit. Qigong's a great way of bringing all three of those together. But martial arts for fitness. Martial arts are a great way to build general fitness. Martial artists, on average, are pretty fit people, especially if you're in some sort of competitive martial arts. Now, if it's competitive, there's going to be fitness and conditioning built into the class because it needs to be there. Because we've all heard the term fighting fit. It's a real thing. There is fit and there is fighting fit. I am currently quite fit. But when I was fighting fit, Jesus, I was unstoppable. You couldn't make me tired. And that's where martial arts lives. They're genuinely some of the fittest people I know. And when I say fit, I'm talking general. Yeah, fighting is obviously one thing, but they can usually turn their hand quite easily to just about anything else. I've met some incredibly fit cyclists and triathletes and that, but that fitness would usually be within quite a narrow parameter. Outside of that, they often struggle. Martial artists tend to be able to jack of all trades, just about anything. They're not great at any one thing. They're obviously great at the martial arts, but they're very good at a lot of other things as a result. The kettlebell guys will call this the "what the hell" effect, which is a bullshit term, by the way. But martial arts tend to have holes in them. And I know this because running Wild Geese for years, being a martial arts based gym, I'd be watching all the Thai boxers, all the jiu-jitsu guys, then we'd have karate guys coming in, and we'd have this guy, and when they inevitably ramp up their training and injuries start to pile up, they come to me and we give them a simple exercise program. And what we find a lot, not all the time, but what we find is once we build their hips and hamstrings, their upper back, then they're pretty much golden. Yeah. So kettlebell swings, rows, deep, and I mean deep squatting, because the knees get a lot of abuse in martial arts, regardless of the art. And then, depending on the system, they might need particular joint prep. Now, joint prep is a gymnastics training term. Gymnastic training, they spend a lot of time doing what they call joint prep. Hands, wrists, knees, shoulders, feet, simply because of the loads and forces they're going to be putting through them. In the traditional martial arts, the old school, the pajama arts, we'll call them, wherever they hail from, Japan, China, Southeast Asia, whatever, they all have some sort of supplementary systems with them. They have exercises with them that incorporate some sort of joint prep. The BJJ guy I was talking to, who's just had his wrist locks, are now big news in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is cool. It does make me laugh because wrist locks have always been slagged off, partly because so many Aikido guys don't go hard. I trained a bit with the Henry Ellis school and they go hard, but wrist locks tend to be ill thought of, but they're back. But what did I learn 20 odd years ago in Aikido and in Goshin Jitsu? A series of ways to help protect the hands and wrists. Let's do it now real quick. Palms together. Bring them down until they spread. Yeah. Simple as that. Yeah. Feel the stretch come through here. That's all it is. Do as many as you like. Start with 10, go up to 15, 20, do a minute or so. Number 2, palm down. Grab the back of your wrist, drop the elbow, come up your wrist, up your zip. Same thing. Do 5, do 10, do 20, do 30, whatever. Yeah, both sides, obviously. Turn your thumb out, come around, grab into fingers into the palm of the hand, so you're grabbing around the thumb. Bring that down your zip, so there's a twist and a rotation. Yeah, do a load of them. Same on the other side, do a load of them. Good. Thumb down. Just grab around the hand. We're going to make a circle now. Come in, down, and out. Yeah, keep your fingers pointing somewhat upwards. Yeah. And the last one, turn your hand in, grab around. You're going to twist it So I'm trying to get my thumb to point forward, and I'm going to screw up through that bone, out through my elbow. So I'm not really bending the wrist, just there. Rotation up, and again we do this on both. Oh, that felt good actually. Do that on both sides. All right, and this is just your introduction. You've just done 5 different wrist locks on yourself. How's that feel? Yeah? Does it feel better? Yeah? Try it. You've lots and lots of small little joints here. Yeah, and the wrist, these bones are all small. If they're not trained, how can you expect them to really function? We all think about these big, these giant, the lats, the pecs, the shoulders, the biceps, triceps, yeah, quads, whoa. But what happens when we get down to the smaller stuff that we rely on day in, day out? And if all this is included, and it is in the old school martial arts, it's forgotten about very much in the modern stuff, you're going to be all right. If you're just using martial arts for fitness, you still have to squat, lunge, crawl, push-ups, pull-ups, lots and lots and lots of rows. Never ever stop rowing, hip hinging, deep squatting. And you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. There's no simple answer. There's no way of saying this is the only way. This is the one way, the only way. It would be nice to see more martial arts instructors studying and learning more about health and fitness, not just modern strength and conditioning methods, but also looking into the history, the old stuff. It is looking into the history of martial arts training that really got me interested in things like the mace, the Indian clubs. It's why I like sandbags. The kettlebell, as soon as I saw it, and even in the very early days when Dragon Door was the only resource for kettlebells, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, well, was it late 90s? 2007 is when I first, or 2007-ish, around then, 2005 maybe, I started hearing about kettlebells. So back then it was all Dragon Door, and all the early adopters of the kettlebell seemed to be from martial arts. And even to this day, a high number of the kettlebell practitioners that are out there seem to have a martial arts focus or background. Why? Because the movement of swinging a weight just feels right to us. And if you look back through the history of martial arts, you'll see a lot of swinging type movements. Yeah, you still need your heavy load stuff, but swinging weights around, whether it be kettlebells, maces, clubs, Bulgarian bags, look online for a thing called a stone lock, and you'll see these old Chinese guys throwing this stone padlock thing around. It looks like the old Acme weights from the Roadrunner cartoons. Martial arts traditionally would also use low gait movements, things like duck walks, monkey type movements, which again go on to gold medal bodies, GMB, and you'll see how they advocate them and tell you how good they are for bulletproofing the body if done right, if built up properly. In fact, David Gray, who I know through the Anatomy of Motion circles, he's posted a lot of videos recently of lads doing duck walks. All the jumping and bounding and bouncing and skipping that martial art guys do. So close to the plyometrics, which are again becoming fashionable again. So it's a really long answer, Jack, but is martial arts good enough for fitness? It ain't bad. It depends on your goals, of course, always depends on your goals, but it ain't bad. But yeah, you still need to do other stuff. If it's not done in the class, which it often isn't because of time constraints, you will have to go out and find. No, go out and do, not find. Go out and do your own training. So, squat, hinge, push, pull, especially upper back, hip, knees. Work the smaller joints, and you'll be fine. Alrighty, we'll leave that there. That's a really, really good question. Joint prep. Play with them. I'm building more courses to go on the website, so you don't have to be asking questions. It'll all be available. And there is, it's on my list here. There's one for the hands and wrists coming up. Alrighty, I'll talk to you soon. Drop me questions, comments, whatever else. Do you subscribe and like and all that nonsense. And I'll chat soon.